think we are ready to go. Good morning, good morning, good morning. A very cold Monday morning it is. I just went to take my bins out and there was this creeper parked at the back of my house, just sat there quietly in his car. Strange people. Anyway, it's good to see you. Good morning. Okay, I hope you've had a good weekend and you've had some time to relax. Thank you for joining me this morning. We'll jump straight in with a few words of inspiration, I hope. Be the same person privately, publicly, and personally. And to me, that just means that it's congruent with your life, mission, purpose, and goals. Essentially, you're being 100% authentic you. There's nothing to hide but being yourself, essentially. You don't need words to show that you care for someone. That's another thing. People always judge on action rather than words. So what you do matters more than what you say, essentially. Okay, this implant can turn your thoughts into speech. European scientists are researching trying to develop neural interfaces in an effort to restore speech to people who've lost it. The idea is to be able to recode the activity in the motor cortex related to articulation to the speech and being able to decode that signal and then send it to a speech synthesizer. The team is looking towards graphene for answers. The material can be only an atom thick and is flexible, transparent, and can conduct electricity, making it a perfect alternative to current implant tech, which can be bulky, inefficient in comparison. Graphene offers an easy integration with flexible technologies, so it can comfortably cover the surface of the brain, and at the very same time it can offer a high signal to noise ratio, so we can read high precision with very small signals which are produced in the brain. Graphene implant would process data in mass quantities, making it easier to interpret brainwave activities and sending it to a synthesizer to speak the words. The team is still improving the implant. They've only used it to restore communication in brain damaged mice. Human brainwaves are much more complex, but they hope to start human trials in 3 years. That was by Now This. So that's quite interesting, really. It sounds like something from a sci-fi movie, but graphene apparently is the key to conducting that. Freedom is not overcoming what you think stands in your way. It's understanding what is in your way is part of the way. Guy Finley. Now really, sometimes some of the biggest obstacles we face are the most important life lessons, and they're the lessons that mould us into more resilient beings, knowing that we can overcome those difficulties, really. I think about my own experiences, for example, of dedicating a significant amount of time towards a care and provision for a loved one, and how much more gratitude I have coming out of the experience, and how much more focused I am in giving because of that experience. I can totally agree with what Guy Finley is saying. Mind, Body and Healing, the past can't be changed. Opinions don't define your reality. Everyone's journey is different. Overthinking will lead to sadness. Happiness is found within. Positive vibes create positive outcomes. What goes around comes around. And breaking down those points, the past can't be changed. That's true, but we can change how we react to future events. That's one lesson to take out of the past. Any past regrets we might have. Opinions don't define your reality. They really don't. That the person's opinion isn't an action. It's a superfluous. Is that correct? Maybe I'm not sure, but it's just a floating idea more than anything else, and shouldn't define what you want to achieve with your life. Everyone's journey is different. Yeah, there are many changes along the path. That's what I'm learning. Overthinking will lead to sadness. So, like I've said on a few episodes, focusing too much on the future is ruminating, and that's never a good thing. Dwelling too far on the past, there's nothing there in the past for you to stay with, you know. Happiness is found within. It's finding the joy within yourself each day, finding a routine and a balance in life that makes you happy, finding a place of contentment to grow from, essentially, with your daily routine, with your self-care and self-health care. And positive vibes creates positive outcomes. If you're a happy, engaged, outgoing person, for example, that sort of stereotype, it becomes a lot easier to engage with others, to create opportunities for growth, shall we say. A couple of quick quotes, one by Mark Twain. Kindness is a language which the deaf can hear and the blind can see. And Theodore Roosevelt, believe you can and you're halfway there. Patience in action is what I always interpret that as well, you know. Patience in action is very, very important. The quieter you become, the more you're able to hear. That's something that I've learned the hard way, I guess. Essentially, the more you shut your mouth, the more that you're able to assess a situation. For me personally, I've been learning to do that, I guess, especially now that I'm in my mid-30s, I guess. When you're in your 20s, you're just kind of like this all the time. But life humbles you a little bit, I guess, so, yeah. Hey Fred, hey Lax, good to see you guys. Thank you for popping in by for the morning roundup. We've got an article here by the Emotion Machine on how important it is not to label yourself. I'll just bring this up a second. So, how the labels we choose for ourselves can limit us and what we want. So the first point is that labeling stops you from thinking for yourself. It almost becomes like a mental shortcut of how you think and behave. Instead of thinking for yourself, all you need to do is copy what other members of a group are doing. As a result, labeling yourself can often lead to blind conformity. Next point, it makes you dislike other people for no reason. And it's kind of that us versus them mentality. I can understand that to a certain degree. I mean, we're born with survival instincts for a reason, you know. We're born with suspicious survival instincts for a reason. So I get that, you know, being a man, you know, there's that sense of you know, friendly competition, shall we say. You develop a strong feeling of allegiance to the group you identify with, and end up thinking less of people who aren't in your in-group, shall we say. Third point, it limits who you become as a person. When you put a label on yourself, it limits how you view yourself. As I mentioned before, when you start to think of yourself as this sort of person, then it influences you to act like that sort of a person. But often this label doesn't fully account for just how dynamic and complex you are as a person. We're all multi-layered versions of ourselves, essentially. We're a makeup of genes, environment, relationships, parenting, education, past experiences, beliefs, emotions and habits. The final point is, be careful when you use labels. In everyday language, labels can be useful, but we have to use them very carefully, especially these days with how vocal and verbal everyone can be and has that platform to do so. It's easy to create offence without meaning to, I guess. So a few points on why it's important maybe not to label yourself. Sometimes what you're looking for comes when you're not looking at all. Sometimes the best things in life happen by accident, whether you believe in fate, whether you don't. When there's a come up, it really turns the day around. Okay, signpost.org has an article on smartphones, and it alludes to smartphones could soon be used to help treat that depression long before patients themselves even notice the problems. I read a little bit into this before bed last night. Hey Darian, good to see you, my friend. I hope that you're having a relatively gentle morning. Smartphones could soon be used to help treat depression long before patients themselves even notice the problems. So essentially it alludes to health apps for tracking moods. Apparently there's over 315,000 mobile health apps out there on the market currently, and they're talking about not only booking, you know, having therapy sessions via these apps, but smartphones to actually identify symptoms. So if there's a person who hesitates to attend the clinic, then they're able to have a method to identify the authorities, looking at speech patterns and movements. Smartphones could pick up on subtle changes indicating if there's a start or worsening of symptoms to patients, and be able to alert healthcare providers accordingly. So that's in the process, and that the actual thoughts and resources came from davidgreitzer.com, University of Toronto. Okay, 3 odd facts. So the first one, lions cannot roar until they reach the age of 2. Other than London, Liverpool is the most filmed British city, and was used to film more than 140 films in 2002. An armadillo can walk underwater, but how long can it breathe underwater? A few words by the Stoic Emperor. Opinions drive conversation. convictions drive action. Okay, just discovered. Taco Bell provides tortillas for NASA to use in lieu of bread, which cause problems due to crumbs getting caught in instruments. These Taco Bell tortillas are ideal due to their long shelf life. Also discovered that after his career at the NFL, American football, Terry Crews spent a year nearly broke, having to get a job sweeping floors at a factory. After a few small roles, he would eventually get his acting breakthrough in 2002 with Friday After Next. Was that with Ice Cube? I think that was with Ice Cube. And the rest is history. Okay, I just discovered that a man was cured of HIV in 2007 with a bone marrow transplant from someone with genes resistant to HIV. He's the first person to ever be cured. And I believe his name was Timothy Ray Brown, also known as the Berlin patient. He was diagnosed with the disease in 1995. There's an article on Wired UK that talks about Monzo teaming up with Flux to make paper receipts a thing of the past. And they're working to essentially have receipts in the digital domain. I'm not going to allude too much further into that. It kind of speaks for itself, really. I'm officially mad. I know, man. I know. I can't imagine what it's like brushing their teeth out in space. That can be a bit of a minefield, I'd imagine. Okay, a few words by the ancient sage. Arrive at an understanding where volatility of circumstance does not affect you. The events of the world will keep unfolding. You may keep responding to them as required, but your inner state need not change. Your life need not be a perpetual reaction to changing circumstances. It's essentially finding your inner core and peace, is how I interpret that. Like, there's always going to be situations and things that will come up at you out of the blue, but it's learning to find that inner place where you're like a rock, unshakable, unmovable, and that takes time and hard work to find that place of contentment to begin with, I believe, anyway, from my interpretation. Okay, Seeker, flying taxis will be here sooner than you think. The future of taxis is in the air, and it's coming soon to Russia. This is a prototype for an air taxi, and it looks like a flying drone to me. It's being designed by a Russian startup named Bartini. The air taxi takes off vertically like a helicopter and flies horizontally like an airplane. The prototype can reach speeds of 125 miles per hour and only weighs 132 pounds. The doors will open up like the DeLorean from Back to the Future. Bartini plans to build the final version of this prototype at a 1:2 scale and hopes to sell these flying taxis commercially by 2020. That's 3 years earlier than Uber's plan to put taxis in the sky. The race is on. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. This is quite a funny little article I saw over the weekend. So, Groundhog Day, or I believe that there was some sort of correlation with Groundhog Day and the timing of the movie. So there's an article talking about how accurate the groundhog from the movie has been in forecasting the weather. So let me just open up that article here, and it says how accurate are Punxsutawney Phil's Groundhog Day forecasts. As the legend goes, if Punxsutawney Phil sees his shadow on February the 2nd, 6 more weeks of winter weather lay ahead. No shadow indicates an early spring. Phil, a groundhog, has been forecasting the weather on Groundhog Day for more than 120 years. But how good is he at his job? And not very, it turns out. I believe the actual statistic is Stormfax Almanac's data shows that Phil's 6 weeks predictions have been correct about 39% of the time. So 39% he's been correct. So I think Phil might need to retire. There's a new article in Scientific American talking about 3D printing as well. A new 3D printing technique can replicate the complex structures using projections of light into special resin, and it's known as the replicator. Popular Science has 4 hidden Mac tweaks to speed up your computer, and if you use a very old laptop like me, you'll be glad of the tweaks. And the tweaks include toning down the visual effects. So what would they say? Basically reducing motion and reducing transparency, and you can find that in the accessibility section of your MacBook. If you're a MacBook user to begin with, check your system use, tone down on the activity, on the apps that you have open, free up hard drive storage. Actually, this all seems kind of common sense. I didn't open up this article last night before checking it. I should have really. And prevent programs from launching a startup. It kind of speaks for itself. It's kind of common sense, I guess. So it's Monday morning. I hope that you have a great Monday. I'm going to go and refill on coffee, grab some breakfast, and take the bins out. I'll see you guys this evening for an ASMR video, maybe a ramble or something like that. I watched The Predator. I was deeply disappointed as a big fan of the Predator movies, so I might ramble about CGI and how terrible it is these days. I don't know, something like that maybe. Anyway, have a great day. I hope it's a good one for you. I'll see you later. Bye. Close down this Twitch stream first.